So I'm Nicky Pereira, I'm the CTO of Zettagrid, and really what we want to do today is show you around our virtual environment while we're all virtually at home.
Thanks,
Okay.
Nicky. And we've got a couple of people on VMware here. Myself, Guy Bartram, Product Marketing Manager for Cloud Director, and Eugene, why don't you go?
Yeah, so Eugene Gear, I'm the account manager looking after Zettagrid and just in general part of the territory.
Cool. And Mo?
I'm Mo Jamal. I'm a pre-sales architect for ANZ, BCPP, and MSP partners, working alongside Eugene and looking after Zettagrid.
Excellent. So, Nicky, thanks for joining us, mate. And why don't we just start off with kind of a bit of a history, because I know you guys are really long-term BCD.
Yeah.
Probably the longest in the world.
Probably. I mean, we started when it launched. We were on in 2010 when it launched. We were with it before. There was a beta. We're trying it all out, and came on board as one of the first vCloud partners in 2010. So launched the product in where we started in Perth, Western Australia, and then saw the potential. We had lots of inquiries, people moving their workloads, and then moved that into quickly into Sydney, into Melbourne, and over time seen more features of vCloud evolve. We've seen products come and go. We've seen technologies come and go. So it's actually evolved quite a bit over the time. But what we did is we stuck with it because we saw the potential in terms of its automation and its multi-tenancy, which is really the big thing, and the consumption model. So following that, eventually the rest of the world caught up and started thinking that, and it was a case of early adopters and laggards have caught up, and now everyone's going down that path. And guess what? vCloud Director, way ahead of its time, is right in the prime position now because of all that development to prepare for this.
So tell us a little bit, before we dive into Cloud Director too much further, tell us a little bit about Zettagrid and what Zettagrid does and where you guys play, the type of services you offer.
So Zettagrid is infrastructure as a service company. We really play in the what VMware term the edge compute, where people need compute close to their environment, their offices, and it is really the encapsulation of resources in its rawest term: storage, compute, hardware, with all of VMware expertise. So we knew that everyone had VMware expertise everywhere. And to move to the cloud, there was a big learning curve, and not everything was capable to move to the cloud straight away. So this was a small step. Let's just move people. You got VMware expertise. We're close by. We're near you. We're local. We're at the edge. So there's that whole component of, I'm not sure about moving stuff away. We've got latency and those type of problems. No, let's move it close by. Give people the comfort, give people the understanding that it's a VMware stack and it's something that I'm familiar with. I don't have to retrain, and start using and consuming resources. So that was the first sort of iteration of where we started, and then where we led to was, okay, well, what do people want to do once they're in the cloud? It started off with the whole dev test, right? Move your dev test workloads in. And so then people said, well, that's great, dev test, we don't really care about it too much if anything happens to it. But soon enough, and actually very quickly, production workloads started coming in. And when production workloads came in, then it was a case of, well, how do we keep uptime? We want to have multiple data centers, we want replication, we want backup. And along with that, we started moving us down the path of infrastructure applications, solutions. People just don't want a virtual data center and configure it. They want to click a button and say, all right, I've got a virtual data center, I've got my application, I've got my company here. Now I want to back up and replicate, and I want to connect and stretch my virtual data center into these multiple cities. I want to click a button. And that's where we really want to do, want to simplify the complex world, which is one of our main objectives.
So did you guys start off with a number of data centers with a shared vCenter environment, or were you more sort of along the lines of dedicating vCenters to customers? If you're using BCD, I'm guessing it probably was a shared infrastructure.
It was shared. So everything that we did was we we went along the lines of where did we think this would head? Where was the future? In the future, at the time, it was all dedicated.
Yeah.
And in the future, we saw, as we started seeing the development of all the cloud players, it was going to be shared. It was going to be you trying to get everything to its max utilization, the best efficiency. And that's what we try to do with everything. All of us, as a technology company, to get the most efficiency, so you don't waste resources. So shared vCenter, and then this was just perfect for us because it was encapsulation on top of that of shared vCloud Director. And then it was just a case of trying to explain that to the general population, multiple iterations with VMware's help, of course, as to how this was different and how this worked. And I see you smiling there. You've gone through many iterations of that. Yes.
Yeah. So what other, I mean, we're going to talk about VCD, but what other sort of products have you got in play from VMware and maybe not from VMware, just surrounding the offering? What does that kind of look like from an OSS standpoint? So,
I mean, so the vCloud Director is the catalyst and everything that is built around that. And then we've got, as I said, we want the backup in DR. So we started off with Veeam. You want to back up your product sets. And I'll just go back one. How do we choose our product sets and the vendors? We really look for the same attributes that we see in VMware. We needed it to be consumption. The licenses had to be, if a customer purchased one license, then we paid for it. We couldn't purchase stuff up front. We wanted it to back. We wanted API access, so we could do infrastructure as code in the future, where we get to now. We needed the automation. So every vendor, should I say, that we looked at, and I keep saying application because that's how I see them as, had to fit within that criteria. And Veeam was the first one that came along. They wasn't there exactly at the time. They had there was PowerShell scripts and things that could do things in the background. But what we did is we used that technology, and then with the extensibility of vCloud Director, we're able to read, all the VMs within vCloud Director and say, all right, well, we're now going to call the Veeam module and back up all the machines. And so therefore, suddenly now we've actually multi-tenanted Veeam, which Veeam hadn't done at the time. And that sort of led down the path. All right, well, Zerto was quite early down the path too. So they were actually a small company in Israel at the time. And we saw, there's a potential here. How do we now back up our critical VMs? And they had the same thing. It was just as you get a machine, you paid for it on a consumption model. So, as I said, everything was just around vCloud Director. So the aim is, how do we get people in vCloud Director, and what are the problems we're trying to solve? Once that they were in that data center, it was what other edge locations did they have? We found locality was very important. That whole, as Pat Gelsinger calls a pendulum of centralization and decentralization, moving from one to the other. So everything was becoming centralized, but we saw the benefit of decentralization. So everything we built as an isolated zone that would run independently in each of the cities that we're in. So the architecture of yourselves, your applications that you're working had to take that into account. We didn't want something that now we extended all our vCloud directors, and suddenly something failed and you couldn't get access to everything. That wasn't what we wanted. We wanted everything to be decentralized to a degree. There was a creative way of solving your custom problems. Every company had custom problems to solve, and the tool set was available in vCloud Director. And it's just a case of, well, what do we need to tweak? Some of it was built in, but most of it was available via the API. And I think that was always since day one. It was a case, how do we need to use that? Now, as things came and progressed throughout the time, the vCloud automation suite, and you had some front-end interface components that started to become available to make things easier to use. But everything was always available. It's just a case of how creative and how much time do you want to spend to get it going.
Yeah, it's kind of like 80-20 rule, isn't it? I mean, you get 80% of what you want via the UI, and then there's a 20% or maybe more, via API, and you still got to do some custom, and you've got to do a lot of stuff like that for billing and metering in any case, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So I get it now. So very much a coverage in city regions, individual kind of cells, redundancy, interconnectivity, shared platform, multi-site kind of configuration of VCD. So how is kind of VCD offered to your customers today? What sort of access do you give them?
So, I mean, they get full access to the VCD, their tenancy,
Right.
and we sell through partners. So a partner will be able to divide that up however they wish. They might have multiple customers of theirs within one VDC, and then they handle the balance. They'll balance that with the particular customer, or they have multiple VDCs each for their customer. That seems like the easiest way, but the most effective way for a service provider is to put them all into one VDC, and you have VApps within that, and then you balance that to make sure that you're getting the most use of your of your resources. But if you're coming from the traditional school of, well, I've got a cluster of resources in tin, what I want to do, I would just map it into resources in the cloud. That's the first step. And then I guess once they're in, then we look at balancing workloads. Let's get things in. Let's understand how they work. Now let's turn things down. You don't have to buy the extra capacity. So that's the general cloud terms. But again, it's a process of, you have to try it. You have to understand it. You've got to, play with it, so to speak, for a bit. And then in time, you're then comfortable. All right, I'm going to turn this down and only have 10% free. And when I need it, I'll just instantly ramp it up. And that's how it works. Yeah.
So in terms of kind of units of tenancy, then we're looking at you guys as the overall infrastructure provider, plugging in additional services into the platform that then become available to your partners for them to offer to their customers. And pretty much you just identified the two ways of doing that. One is to do a kind of direct provider VDC for a partner, and then subs out org VDCs. You mentioned VApps, so how does that one work?
So they build the application and all the machines within a VApp themselves,
Right.
and that is their customer. So they build a VApp within that.
So you use the network isolation for a VApp instead.
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
that's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, so that was just dependent on how capable and creative the customer, the partner wanted to be. They could do something like that. So that was probably more in the advanced end, because you have to encapsulate security networks, and then you have to work in balancing. But from an efficiency point of view, it's very efficient. You can get the most use out of your customers. You might have customers who peak in business hours. You might have customers who peak in enough business hours. So why pay for double the amount of resources? So you can really benefit yourselves and your customers by doing something like that.
Do you kind of monetize? So looking at kind of, all right, there's a resource pool, there's compute, storage, networks, physical resources you're consuming in a virtual resource pool. Do you then monetize additional things like NSX, gateways, load balancers?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we progress, NSX came on. Before that, we had there was a Linux appliance that escapes my mind that we use as the edge gateway. And then as we NSX came on board, we worked out how we wanted to package it, and we worked with VMware with Huge and said, this is how we want to package it up, because NSX initially was a very enterprise offering, and as a cloud provider, it wasn't really a cloud provider offering yet, or a service provider offering. So we said, well, we want to offer it with as an edge gateway, and we want to have it with every customer that buys a VDC gets an NSX, because selling it as an individual product and say, well, NSX is great, it can do these things, it was a hard sell. So we said, all right, let's bundle it in with VMware Cloud Director, and let's show what the capabilities are. And as we had to build a front end, because at the time there wasn't a front end for NSX, so we had to spend some R&D time just to get it so people could say, all right, I'm going to use this. I can see this is my firewall rules, and this is how I can do BGP routing within it. And just again, and this is what the power NSX gives me. So it was, yes is the answer. Bundle as much as you can, and as you see when we get into a bit of a demo, I'll show you. As people start using things, they'll think, I'd like to back up, or I'd like to do certain features which might not be part of my core offering, but it will help me extend into it.
Okay, cool.
Guys, I'm gonna jump off. I'm sorry, interrupt your recording.
No worries.
I gotta feed kids dinner time. So,
Thanks, huge.
No worries, Eugene. Take care. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, Guy, look, you couldn't be in any better hands than Nikki.
Yeah.
We've done some. The guys have done some amazing work around vCloud Director and other VMware solutions. So, yeah, I could not pick a better partner to work with than these guys.
Thanks.
Cool.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Cheers. Well, let's. I guess on that note, let's have a dig into it then, Nikki.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. So I'll share my screen.
Be a shame not to at this point.
Yep. So within Zettagrid, so this is sort of once you log into it, you've got your standard catalog. There's two parts of it. We've got this front end, and really the front end is about billing and provisioning. Initially, it was, well, we're going to show, you could see your resources.
Is this all homegrown? Sorry.
This is all, this is all homegrown.
Okay.
So we built this on the back of the, the APIs that are available with Cloud Director, but we wanted to make sure that this is still a gap. When somebody wants to bill and provision, previously you would have to call someone up, and an engineer would then bill and provision it and add it to the billing system. So we wanted that process to be automated. And what you would do is you'd go through and say, well, I'd like a virtual data center. You choose the zone that you want it in, the types of backups you want, types of tier storage that you want, number of Windows licenses, just standard things. And if you need assistance, then we can help you configure it. Off it goes. Adds it to an order. And builds up the machine. So that initial step, it'll build it up in a 5-minute window in that zone. So that initial step is a bit of time for most people to do before you get into the vCloud interface. So we wanted people to have that experience straight away. If I want something, I've got a demand for something, click it, install it, provision it. I'm going to get a bill. It's going to invoice me. This is the price it's going to invoice. It's not, and this is something that's very useful with VMware and the way we've done it from a billing perspective. What this does is it gives us a bill of $242, and that's what you pay. If you start maxing out your CPU, you'll obviously hit a limit, but you won't pay more. And the aim is you hit a limit, and if you wanted to pay more, you could then go off and say, all right, no, I can see I'm maxing it out, or I'm willing to take that, and I'll have some CPU wait state happening. But I know my bill at the end of the month will be $242.50.
Yes, that's good. So you've aligned the compute resource against a monetary value, which people tend to understand a bit better. Mm-hmm. So 2 questions. Are you hard allocating, or are you doing reservations? And how is a customer going to be aware that they're coming to the amount of reservation or allocation you've allotted?
So I believe we're allocating units. I have to confirm that. And we have the measuring. So in vCloud Director, you can start to see when your CPU units are. So I'll actually just I'll go to one of our services. Bring up Melbourne, and then you'll see it just retrieves the data, so you can start to see, when it comes back, what I'm using to what I purchased.
Okay, so you've built your own kind of view there of the service itself, right?
So exactly. So you need to know, when I'm at my limit. So you can come into this and say, right, well, this is a view when I'm at this limit, and we can go from there.
Okay.
And so it's allocated. So this is using next to nothing of that unit. So once it goes up, and it's at this amount. So this is where you want someone to come in and check it daily or once a month or whatever process they've got. And in that process, they would then say, oh, look, do I need to extend it or reduce it? And it does that as a hot add. We just resize it. and you choose, all right, I need to increase it by 250 gigs or and so forth, and this will
And this is
update your
something.
billing.
This is
Yep.
something you leave to the partner to do, right? You don't have
Yes,
any
yes.
internal kind of
Nope.
monitoring
Yeah.
of this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so we leave the partners to do that. I mean, what we monitor, we make sure that there is available resources, and we balance the load. And if there's machines that are very noisy or talking a lot outside their I/O, we will balance that out as well. So that's what we monitor. We make sure that the quality of service is there for the customer. Or the partner, and the partner then manages, well, I want to increase and decrease it rather than having to talk to us. They're able to do that. They can still talk to us if they need to design or architect something. We're happy to give them the best practice of how to do that. And that's sort of the best partners, the ones that work with you together and say, well, they've got some VMware experience. We've got the experience in the Zettagrid. How's it work together? And most of the time, it's a pretty seamless one. Once you sort of explain it and they get it, that's it, no problems. And then sometimes we just need to go in a bit more detailed drill down in terms of how it works, and we'll get our pre-sales guys and architects involved to sort that out.
And I guess just a question here. This is obviously a lot of IP that you're showing now. A lot of development has gone into this. Was there a reason why you, I guess, built this at the time rather than buying an off-the-shelf product to do this for you?
There wasn't one at the time. So
right.
When we did this, this was version 1 in 2010, and
right.
and there wasn't anything to do, and we wanted to automate it all. We didn't want to have people pushing buttons and clicking it. We needed that automation to go out, and it's this is just a billing and provisioning. As I said earlier, it did everything because VCloud Director, the interface was that Flash interface, and people would still go to that. But before that, this is where they would do the majority of the managing onto that.
I think your life's probably got a bit easier since it's now HTML5, right?
Absolutely, So now it's all great. Yes. So
okay.
Into the catalog, you choose that, and then you choose your supporting products. Sometimes you'll need some explanation, but as a partner, the different tiers of partners that we've got, if you're a partner with all the certifications, you know how to build it up. So you basically go through, choose the shopping kit you want, and it provisions it all for you, and then you'll get all your services, and off you go and log into your VCloud Director portal, which I've logged into one here anyway. So
yeah.
So this
is. So you've skinned that to have the same kind of branding as Zettagrid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we've skinned it to have the same branding as Zettagrid. I mean, this is a familiar view for most people now. And from here we drop down, and then we can choose the products we want. And as I was talking earlier, I mentioned that, well, I've just got a VCloud Director, I've got a virtual data center, and the first thing I would do is back up. Now, what we didn't want to do is have somebody have to now go outside and then go, oh yeah, I've got to go back to my catalog and then purchase that, do all those things. So we said, well, once you're in here, you start thinking of, oh, okay, well, I need a backup. I want VCAV. Great, I can just click on that. If that's enabled, if it comes, this one it's not enabled in this zone, so it actually comes through and says, oh, no, it's there. All right. And then if I go to VCloud Backup, it comes and says, we don't have a service there, it's not provisioned. So this is where we put our first, would you like to order this product? Right.
Nice.
So we try.
So just so everyone who's listening knows this is using the extensibility framework with VCloud Director, and you've written your own interface here to that, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So we put our own interface, and this is where this has some feedback. This would be great if the thinking could be from a product perspective. How do we add more products and features within here to say, okay, well, you got VCloud Director. Here are all the solutions, and maybe it could be across the panel here. In terms of
so yeah, new update for you. So in 10.1, that hamburger menu vertical is now gone. It is a horizontal menu.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
exactly that.
Exactly that. Yes.
Yeah.
So it comes through, and then but I choose that, and then it comes to this, and then I can click and order it, and it will then bring me to the portal.
So just stop there. So I just want to make sure I understand what's actually happening in the background here.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment you're clicking order, you're kicking off. Is that going to be using the Rabbit MQ for some automation at the back end, or is it okay? Right.
Yeah.
Good.
So we got that. It goes to the order cart first. So they've got to agree to pay this price and use my account and so forth. Click at that, and then it pushes off and does provisioning. Provisions.
And how hard was that? How hard was that to do you reckon? I mean, what sort of time and cost was that?
I don't think it was hard to do. So in actual time, elapsed time, it was less than a month to do. That was with testing and everything else. It was actually probably a week's worth of work trying and testing to see how it all worked. But that was because we had that framework that you saw earlier. Already done.
And all the demos and examples that are available with it makes it a lot easier.
Yes. So we use that, and we move forward the other way. So now let's just go to an existing one. So this is one I've actually got a service on this. I'll just go to availability. So I don't know why availability is coming up with not available, but it should pop up. All right, so there it is.
Which version available is 3.5, isn't it?
It's 3.5, yeah. So we're upgrading to 4. So maybe just 3.5, yep.
Yeah.
So we go down to VCD backup now. This is one where you've got the service done, and it comes up with a Veeam console within vCloud Director. So normally what would happen is this would launch another browser outside vCloud Director. And the aim is, well, you want to keep people within it, and you don't want multiple windows, and it's just nice to have. So let's just keep the Veeam console within vCloud Director. Right, so here it is. I can see my jobs. This is a Veeam product, right? But it's in vCloud Director now, and products. You're after the outcome, right? So as a customer, you just think, all right, the aim, and because we're able to see things from an API perspective, the product becomes something that's at a high level. It could be another product. We could change a product.
Of course.
When it comes in, you see the same interface, or you see something different. So we don't have to educate or train a partner if it's something that's very simple to use and consume. Is there? My headphones are about to run out. I'm just going to change the battery. One sec.
Okay. That's one thing I'm noticing from talking all day on video calls. You need some good batteries. It's like the end of the day, it's starting to break up.
So this is the vCloud. Yeah, so this is Veeam backup, and this will back up your machine, your vCloud Director machines. Yep.
The VMs and VApps as well, or just VMs?
VMs and VApps. Yep, and so just the standard stuff. But again, it's all around vCloud Director. What does vCloud Director offer? How are people using it? Now, what will they want to do? Where are the gaps? And this is one of the gaps we thought of.
So, from a partner's perspective, then I can see how this works in a single tier, because in a single tier, Zettagrid directly to a customer, they'd go in and they'd select the products they wanted from the portal here and add to order, and they'd be good. But from a partner's perspective, they obviously want to apply their markup to their end customer as well. So how does that work?
So they would have their own billing relationship with the customer. So we don't play with their markup and how they want to offer it. We offer them a price minus their partner discount. So that's what we would bill them. Now, if they want to, they can change their IDs of the quotes and so forth, so they can break it down per customer. And then they would charge it on there.
So the end customers then don't see this interface. They only see the VCD interface.
No, they'll only see the VCD interface as per whatever agreement they've got. So this is purely billing and provisioning. So if you're a customer and you're doing billing and provisioning, you'll see this. But if you're a service provider doing billing and provisioning, the customer will never see this
Okay.
this interface.
And how do you handle, just out of interest, how do you handle SLAs for partners?
So we've got our standard level of SLAs, and if a partner wants a higher availability, then we would work out, all right, well, we want 99.99 level of availability. Okay, well, maybe you'll need 2 zones or multiple number of machines, and we'll work out there. So architecture will sort out the availability. What we want to offer is a consistent availability for all partners. So we don't offer anything more specific for one enterprise partner to a single user. Everyone has the same offering, and I think that's what appeals to it. You can actually have access to enterprise solutions and be a single law firm or legal firm, and have the same type of SLAs and availability as an enterprise customer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. All right.
Yep. But as I said, higher availability, you can architect and design for that, and with our multiple zones and being completely independent, you can do that. And this is where also, we'll have different backup and DR products. So that was it. Veeam, we've got Zerto, that will be able to backup and replicate, more real time across our different zones.
And do you provide, I see you got like network traffic there on the egress for networking. Do you provide networking services as well to complement the connectivity?
Absolutely. So we own an ISP, and that's called Zettagrid, and we will then have connectivity from their premise. We could, if they want to have a fiber link to us, we can do that, and then we've got connectivity between all the data centers and into the hyperscalers as well. So if you want access into a direct route into Azure or something into your VMware on AWS instance, we can provide capability on that too. So the aim is it will be complementary. I've got my edge service. I've got some edge service machines here, which I don't want on premise anymore, but I want them local to me. And I've got something that's sitting in a hyperscaler cloud in VMware on AWS. That's my high-end, very high available machine. I've got my machines which require low latency and edge compute services here. And I might have my Office 365 and some infrastructure in Microsoft Azure. So that whole hybrid cloud plays together. And I guess the extensibility of this means this next set of problems that people have. This is where we try and solve. It's like, okay, well, we'd like to do this, and this, and if enough partners come to us and say we're getting lots of demand for this because people are now moving from working in the office to working at home, and they've all got these NASs, well, let's offer a NAS as a service product and get them using that because they're not quite used to using backup as a service yet. So those are the types of concepts that we try and build. And again, we're not the R&D house. We don't want to be competing against 10,000 developers at VMware. That's not what our place is. But every bit has gaps, and also if we could help with, for example, I showed you just the potential of this screen. All right, so maybe you look at that and VMware goes, actually, that's a good idea. We could build that within, or show how we could do this with more of our products. That's where we like to add value.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're right. It is a gap at the moment, this type of capability in VCD, and I think it's very useful for the type of service that you provide. Certainly, where you want a zero-touch kind of environment with your partners. From a managed service provider perspective, though, I think the demand is different, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that's where we want to add to it, though, because as a managed service provider, we want them to be providing the service to the customers. It's about servicing the customers and managing their SLAs and managing expertise. Whereas this should be automated. You shouldn't need to be managing this stuff. You say, all right, we'll give you a report to talk about all our backups. Are they on time? Are they working? Here are the ones that have failed. So analyzing that, not having to worry about managing that. So I think that's where the complementary services and working with managed service providers actually does work.
Have you seen the tile functionality that's available now, where you can import VRO workflows as tiles in Cloud Director?
I might not have.
Because that's one aspect that's. Sorry, go on.
I've seen your tiles in your app, the app hub, or what's the name of that?
App Launchpad.
App Launchpad, yeah. So I've seen those
Yes.
tiles and thought, well, we could do things similar.
Yeah, no, this has been around since I think '97, and basically VRO workflows can be imported into the VCD UI, and their workflows. If you took, for example, PowerShell workflow, it would obviously parameterize the input, and they can go off and do things like go off and get a SKU, for example, and then feed back the information that's come back to the person who's initiated the workflow in the tile. So it is one way you could construct a similar thing for this.
Sure.
Again, the scripting is all done in whatever scripts you're going to run. The orchestration engine is the key part there, the VRO, vRealize Orchestrator, which is a component of VCD.
Yep.
But this is certainly one way of doing it, and I think there's multiple ways of doing this now.
Absolutely.
And the extensibility framework, I think the nice thing about it is it kind of, the way we separated the application from the UI in VCD means that things that we do won't impact the extensibility framework. So this is a really great way of providing a sustainable solution across different versions.
Yep. So I mean, I guess that's the high level of the product suite. I mean, the idea is, even though it seems basic, by adding all these products together and working out how they're going to be delivered to customers, and then how we're going to deliver as a managed service provider, if there was a managed service provider involved, how they're going to deliver the services, that's where the complexity comes in. So you can actually make something very simple complex, and when I'm saying complex, it's in a good way, because then you have something to offer with your expertise. If this wasn't complex, then anyone could do it and work it out. And yeah, sure, you can come to a VDC, but when I want to say, well, I want it to fail over and have high availability across multiple countries and make sure my business is up and going, then you need to call in the experts. So I think you want to have that level of, I've got a basic user and this is what a basic company looks like, to I've got a complex solution and we need a complex or a highly qualified VMware partner to come in and solve that solution.
So Nikki, one question here. So it's like you said, it's a complex solution put together by different components and highly automated through extensibility and the workflows and whatnot. So what's the break fix failure rate, and how much time and resource do you need on average to maintain this environment and provision that?
Look, I mean, it's the whole thing with vCloud Director, and I mean, I think when we first installed it, we didn't realize the potential, but these things just tend to run because it's all, it's stock standards blueprint of how VMware is installed, how vCloud Director is installed, and this is just pulling out everything that's available to us. It's very straightforward to maintain and run. So we run this out of our single. Out of our main area in Perth, which then looks after the Asia time zone and into the Sydney time zone, or East Coast time zone. And the ratio is about 1 engineer to 1,000 machines. And that's been consistent. And I don't think we've hit the limit yet. So maybe, I could be talking to you in 6 months and go, it's up to 1 per 5,000 machines. So at the moment, we're seeing more automation come through. We were able to deploy Sydney and Brisbane and Adelaide in 2 weeks.
Right. Okay.
And the majority of that time was logistics. Once it was there and it was all plugged in, we pushed the button and we deployed that, almost instantly. So that's the power of vCloud Director, and it's a true, we're a true example of doing that, because I don't think we'd be able to compete. We can't compete with a hyperscaler. We can't compete with that space. So what do? We've got to be smart, automate it. We've got to reduce the number of people maintaining and running this, and be smart with our offerings and work with the right partners to deliver that.
So that means that if a customer is looking for a very private cloud experience in a hosted form, you can stand up the entire customer with a full self-service capability in a day?
Well, I wouldn't say a day, but I would say that if they have everything plugged in, then in less than a week you can get it all going. So
Under a week, okay.
yeah, under a week you can get it going. So I mean, when I purchase a vCloud Director instance, you can see, it says Adelaide, Sydney. I mean, these are merely just names, right? They're a piece of hardware infrastructure in a data center in actually these countries. However, there's nothing stopping us saying this is in a private instance in a data center with the framework deployed onto that. It could be company XYZ, and company XYZ has only have a private network and no one else can see company XYZ, and we could rebrand it company XYZ with a vCloud 10 vCloud Director. You could have that. We could have the naming rebranded to their company colors and so forth. So absolutely, that is something that we think is possible. So people, instead of public cloud providers providing edge gateway services, we could have companies purchasing edge gateway services to provision and use themselves, but we just maintain and run their infrastructure from this perspective. So it's a platform as a service, so to speak. We haven't seen much demand from that, but I think we're getting to that point now. It's early days in customers going, this is great. I want a VC, I'll buy a VCF platform from Dell, and I want Zettagrid on that. And I don't want my customer to know it's Zettagrid. I'll call it company XYZ. So the potential's there. It's just a case of thinking outside the box.
Yeah, for sure. Where do you see the roadmap for this going, Nikki?
I mean, from our perspective, we're following what customer demand is going. So, that we want to add more and more products as they are made available from VMware. We think there's a potential for your security products with the extensibility of all the backup and DR products. We're seeing a lot of people use backup and DR in the Asian countries for sure. So in Australia, people use backup and DR for compliance. In Asia, people use backup and DR for real. So they have power outages. They have all kinds of things that happen because they got lots of people, lots of infrastructure, and things break. And so that's what we're starting to see. So we're only partially able to solve those problems. Yeah, we've got to bring a machine up, but there's gaps in that. So I think there's more development needed, and we're seeing that with some of the new VMware products. But what we like to do is package it up into nice solutions, and I'd like to have instead of it just being an infrastructure as a service application, we want to offer a complete solution. So we want to have a product or an application suite that's it's developed and pushed out in multiple countries. It's a 3-tier application, and a customer just clicks that button and it's done based on that, and then in they go and maintain it and customize it.
So in other words, an application PaaS platform where the customer doesn't really need to know anything about the underlying infrastructure. You take care of all of that.
Yeah,
it's their focus on the application and the business. Yeah. So have you seen App Launchpad yet?
Yes, I have seen App Launchpad, and we're keen to work with App Launchpad. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there you can provide not only Bitnami and VMware Cloud Marketplace applications, but you can publish a lot of your own applications in there as well.
Yeah.
So similar to what you had before with the order mechanism, you can have different T-shirt sizes of services or applications available to a tenant just to click on and say, I want one of these 3-tier applications.
Exactly, and
large,
that's how we saw
medium,
that.
small.
And we thought that'll be perfect for the types of offering that we want to have. Yeah.
So that's a VCD 10.1 feature, and there's also I think which will be important to use the next version of vCloud Availability version 4, which comes out at the end of May. That has this concept of SLA profiles where you can start tiering the DR service that you provide based on RPO, coercing, that type of thing. So there's going to be a lot more flexibility.
I want to show you a product that we've built. So this is built on Zettagrid. So this is another company we have and we work. So it's connects them, and it's Atlassian hosting.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody can go through and they choose a region, and it's containerized. So you could choose it to be either running on our Zettagrid infrastructure, or you can choose it, international, and it'll run on Amazon infrastructure. Now, the idea for this is it's an application. Somebody just clicks a button and they deploy Atlassian and the whole suite of Atlassian products. The difference between this and, say, the Atlassian cloud is the enterprise then can go off and install the products and plugins that they want to control and look after, or the service provider. They can then look after the data and manage their data integrity. Plus, because it's now built on all the products that I've just shown you, if somebody goes, oh, well, I'd like to back this up, no problems, because we've got the Veeam backup, or I would like to replicate this into multiple zones, we could do the same thing. So this is just an example of, extending on that app launchpad. Yeah, app launchpad, if somebody goes through and goes, I'd like the Atlassian suite, click on this, it pushes a workflow, it builds it for them, and off you go. So this is a potential. I think this is where we think it's heading. The whole idea of applications, but applications that users can manage and administer and look for, but then the base is something that we manage and automate and look after for them.
Yeah, I think when you start looking at these things, it becomes a question of migration versus net new, right? I mean, I might want to migrate my existing data set into this application, in which case that becomes a professional service offering your partners could deliver. Whereas with actually, how do you handle migration into your platform if someone creates a VDC and wants to migrate workloads in?
We use vCloud availability. So
you do, okay.
Yeah, so that's how we first started. So VCAV, as you know, is migration in, then backup and DR, and then into cloud. So we had customers migrate in and migrate out. We don't want customers migrating out, but some customers, for whatever reasons, want to move back on premise. We had some customers do that, and we said this was such a good experience. They actually was so good experience that we saw them reprovisioning something back into the cloud, and we're like, why is this guy? I thought they're moving out. Why are they coming back in? But they actually gave us feedback. Oh no, it's actually so good. We wanted to just double check that it was just as easy to move into Zettagrid using that. So it was a good experience. So look, the whole idea with cloud is people come and go. So we shouldn't be worried about that. So it's just a case of, well, let's just make it as seamless and easy. The idea is not to try and keep customers. Of course, you want to keep customers, but you want customers to consume and grow and use the service. And if you're not doing that and they're not seeing the value, then why are they there? So that's what I mean about keep customers. Customers, it shouldn't be a choice of should I stay or should I go. It should be a case of this is required for my business, and that's why they're here, and that's why VMware is there, and that's why we're here. So I think that's part of what our thinking is.
I think it's particularly nice that you're providing now. I mean, one of the things I kind of see is customers want to use these solutions like Jira, like you've got up on now, and all of those solutions, but often they're having to do it in public cloud, hyperscale environment, which really presents some issues. And what you're able to do here is provide like the guardrails for an enterprise to say, well, it's running in a secure environment on our cloud. I can tell you which host it's running on. You won't get that information from anywhere else.
So I mean, all you can see is it's just it's around the VDC construct. So that's what what VDC is coming. That's why VDC is successful. Well, you can put the same construct with applications as well, and people do love the idea that they can manage and maintain it, but they might not want to maintain it just that level below, but they do want to play with the plugins. They do want to back it up, so if they do a migration to live and something goes wrong, they can roll it back. They want that level of control, and this gives them that. I really do believe that.
Cool. Well, this has been really insightful, Nikki. So thank you very much for kind of showing us around your platform and your solutions. You guys have done a really good job, and VCD's 10 years old this year, and you've been with it all the way. So that's quite something. Yeah,
absolutely.
Very cool indeed. And like I said, there's lots of exciting stuff coming. VCD 10.1 is out now. Cloud availability, or what will be rebranded Cloud Director availability, is coming the end of May. So hopefully there's be more stuff for you to plug into your environment and enjoy and monetize.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks.